podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Audio bandwidth for This Week in Tech is provided by AOL Music and Spinner.com, where you can get free MP3s, exclusive interviews, and more. Video bandwidth for TWiT is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com. This is TWiT, This Week in Tech, episode 233 for February 1st, 2010. Apple II forever. This Week in Tech is brought to you by the new Carbonite Pro. It's simple, secure, and affordable online backup for your small business. For a free trial and to learn more, visit CarbonitePro.com. And by Audible.com. To download 2 free audiobooks of your choice, go to audible.com/twit2. And don't forget to follow Audible on Twitter at audible_com. And by GoToMeeting. Business travel can kill your company's profits, so do more, save more, and travel less with GoToMeeting. For your free 30-day trial, visit gotomeeting.com/twit. It's time for TWiT, the show that covers all the latest news. And today, there's nothing to talk about but the iPad. That's why we brought in the top of the line, best guys in the business. Because maybe they could find something else to talk about. Tom Merritt, he's an expert on the tech news because he does Buzz Out Loud every day.
Hello, Leo.
I've seen that. Hey, Tom, it's great to see you.
It's good to be here. Thanks for having me on.
I saw you at the launch.
Oh yeah, that was fun. I actually never got to touch the thing.
You didn't?
No.
Because you got too busy?
But I got I wasn't allowed in. They restricted the number of people from CNET that could go in.
So Molly got to touch it, but not you?
No, Brian Tong, Donald Bell, and Erica Ogg.
Who the hell are they?
Brian Tong from CNET TV is our Apple Byte host. Erica Ogg News and Donald Bell Reviews. They're like, we'll let one from TV, one from Reviews, one from News. That's it.
Okay, I'm not going to say anything.
Go ahead, say something.
I would put my celebrities on this one, wouldn't you? The big names. It's like NBC got to go in, and Fergley got to see it instead of Brian Williams. It's like, what the hell?
That's probably what would happen. They'd leave Brian Williams on the anchor desk. That's where Molly and I had a lot more fun sitting in the studio, making comments.
Yeah. I can imagine.
How does it feel?
Yeah.
Does it feel sensual?
It
like
does.
Touching the supple ankle of a A-list movie star.
That, ladies and gentlemen, is the amazing voice of Mr. Patrick Norton, who was also there in his little bear hoodie.
Yes, I've gotten a lot. That's from tadgear.com. It's a bear hoodie, and yes, it is expensive because it is made in America by American laborers who charge more than slave labor overseas.
Oh, man. Come on. You're wearing some slave labor outfit right now, aren't you?
This is American Apparel. I have no idea where this came from.
Is American Apparel actually made in America?
Mm-hmm. L.A. It's a squirrely company for other reasons, but they do employ workers in L.A. They strongly prevent them from organizing unions, but hey, who does?
There you go.
And they pay them 50 cents an hour.
There you go. So really, which is worse, being a slave laborer in America or in Thailand?
Thailand.
Well, technically, you can't be a pure slave labor in America, depending on what you define slave labor as.
I guess you're right. John C. Dvorak probably would have something to say if he weren't so appalled by this conversation. He is
it's terrible.
Shocked and
Paid
dismayed.
laborers for their work. Crush them now.
Crush all slaves. Is that right? Is that the right way to go?
I think you're right, Mr. Marks. Yes. So we're actually not going to talk about the iPad at all today. It's boring. It's done. It's over. I don't care. All right, maybe a little later on.
Let the market play it out. See what happens.
Well, that was an interesting thing that David Pogue told me. He said, because what surprised me is how much hatred there was spewed. Vitriol. Like Apple had stepped on somebody's cat. I mean, people were pissed off.
Is that? I think this was the point of my Market Watch column that ran on Friday for all of you out there who want to read something decent.
What was the point?
That was really the point.
But why do you think people were peeved?
I think everybody had their pet little thing they wanted on the machine and it didn't deliver. Everybody I talked to, everybody had their own pet little peeve.
Yeah, so there was no way Apple could respond.
Well, this is a problem. This reminds me of the time, if anybody wants to remember way back, but this happens every so often. Texas Instruments pulled something like this. When they came out with the TI-99/4, you remember that, Leo?
404A.
Sure. Love that sucker.
And
Just like
it
a real
was missing a
computer.
control key or something. I forgot what it was. There were some keys it was missing. They just weren't on the keyboard, and they were important keys. And it was like, hey, had they rolled it out showed people the thing in advance, like, months in advance, and not made it such a big secret, they would have gotten enough feedback right there to fix all these complaints. If Apple had rolled this thing out to everybody, pretty much like a kind of a small beta, so it got out, people saw pictures of it. It wasn't really finalized, and it wasn't really fully announced. And people could come back and say, hey, I'm not going to buy this if it doesn't have a camera, or I need a stylus. I can't draw on this thing, or a million of these other complaints. They would have fixed it. They would have had a perfect pad, but no, they had to keep a big secret.
They wouldn't have had a perfect pad. They would have had a tablet PC like there's 300 other ones.
The TI-99/4 was missing a backspace key.
No, that's pretty significant.
I don't think that the iPad is missing anything quite as critical as that.
I would
No,
submit
you
that
looked it up as a backspace key. It's stupid.
the camera is not. I tell you, here's what I think is missing. I think stylus. No.
See,
of
you
course
have your
not.
one thing, too.
Yeah, but stylus is crazy. I don't think lack of multitasking is a huge minus. Frankly, I've got multitasking on the Nexus 1, and it crashes it more often.
That was
than not.
Hitler's complaint.
Yeah, crashes too often.
Godwin's law.
And the camera, okay, it'd be nice to have a camera, but I don't think this is so much a content creation device as a content consumption device, which means that my biggest question is why they didn't do a 16:9 720p device, because movies look like crap on this because they're so letterboxed. To me, that's the biggest minus. My position is it's not to replace a netbook, it's to replace a Kindle. It's a content consumption device.
Yeah, or a Kindle, or I'm trying to use my iPhone on the couch at home and the screen's too small and I'm getting frustrated, but I don't want to have to go pull my laptop out. This is that device.
Yeah.
It's a pretty small niche.
Yeah, it's kind of
I
an iPhone for
don't-
senior citizens.
I think it's a good niche. I think it's a niche.
It may not be a bad niche.
I'll be watching. I'll be reading the New York Times on it, magazines. I think it's going to be a great book reader. Some people say LCD. I don't know. I think it looked like a nice screen that was.
I understand why they didn't put multitask in, because they don't want it in the iPhone. This is the iPhone OS. They may put
Right.
multitask in iPhone 4 when they finally figure it out, if they figure out how to make it.
Multitasking doesn't belong on a phone. I know a lot of phones have it, but I think it causes problems almost always.
But I get why it's not in there yet, and they could roll it in later. And in fact, all the Apple guys apparently were dropping hints like crazy, like, "Oh, there'll be more features in this before it actually launches."
Oh, that's
So
interesting.
It sounds like maybe there'll even be
They could
an
put that.
OS
They
rev.
could put a backspace in.
I don't know if it'll be 4, but if it'll be 3.5 or something before then. But I don't understand why they didn't put a camera in. Was it just keeping the cost down?
Yeah,
Is that all there is to it?
I would say.
How
I
much
think hitting
extra
that
is
$499
Cameras.
putting that $499 price point was tough for them, and I think they're right to hit that
some
price
of the
point.
some of the people specking parts are saying there's only $250, $275 in parts in it. So that still leaves Apple a fairly healthy amount of profit in there.
That's true. If those
Pick up
numbers
on
are
there,
accurate. Yeah.
and it's it's an unsubsidized device, so they should be from what everybody's saying, there should be money to be made on this. I think it, but I gotta go back a step, Leo, and say multitasking does belong on phones because it belongs on personal computers. These aren't phones anymore. This is far beyond a phone. And case in point, this is not a phone.
I don't
in
think it's a
terms of-
personal computer either, though.
Well, it may not be a personal computer either, but the idea that if I have something going, it's annoying to have to restart everything from scratch every time you launch an application. You know what I mean? It's got a good old-fashioned DOS, terminate and stay resident program kind of feel to it, which is really annoying on the iPhone.
Well, we should point out that there is multitasking on the iPhone. It's just that only Apple gets to do it.
Right.
Yeah, and they only get to do it with the phone and to a lesser degree the GPS, and to a greater degree the
iPod does it.
Yeah.
You can listen to music and play a game. I do it all the time.
Yeah, no, and it's great, but it's only kind of like the lockdown stuff that Apple allows you to.
Well, and I think that their point in that case would be it's nervous for us to make a phone that can be locked up. And I locked up my Nexus 1 for 45 minutes yesterday, which meant I couldn't make a call because I installed a podcatching client that decided it wanted to download all of this stuff at the same time, and I couldn't use the phone. And so I can understand why you would make that argument a phone. I agree with you, Patrick. The tablet is less of an argument. I think the tablet has
But I mean,
more
I've
power.
had my iPhone lock up without doing anything other than using the regular features that were put in there by Apple.
It's gotten more reliable, though, right? It doesn't lock up
No,
nearly
absolutely,
like it did. Yeah.
absolutely.
So I think that they're looking at reliability. I wouldn't be surprised to see multitasking. But I don't think lack of multitasking is killer, because I think really this is like, here's my use case. I'm reading in bed. Maybe I want to check my email real quickly or look at Twitter. Get up, I want to read the New York Times at the breakfast table. Maybe look at the New Yorker or a magazine or Us or something. Take it to work. I have the chat room running on it in the background. Mm-hmm. You know, you can watch movies and TV on it. You know, if you have a Sling box, it'll put TV anywhere in the house. You put the Sling application on it. I think that's a pretty compelling content consumption device. That's my point. But people, they're on Facebook, they're on Flickr, they're moving photos, I think, basic web usage at this point for a lot of people involves content creation. Yeah,
if it didn't, they wouldn't have, if they didn't expect it to be used for a significant amount of email or Facebook or whatever, they wouldn't have, basically launched it with their own keyboard adapter in place on that one.
Well, that was what puzzled me. I thought that was a mistake. I thought launching iWork and the keyboard kind of implied something that it's not. It implied it's more of a computer. I thought that was kind of a mistake, to be honest.
Having used that keyboard on the screen, I mean, it's not bad for an on-scring keyboard.
Yeah, you're not going to do much typing.
I can type 80 words a minute on a real keyboard. I can type about 15 on that screen. So, by having the keyboard, even if it is optional, it'd be nice if you just use a Bluetooth keyboard or something with it. But by having the keyboard there, people who type and do entries, and there's a whole lot of people out there, moms and dads.
You should get a netbook then. If you want a camera multitasking a keyboard, isn't that a netbook?
But didn't Steve tell us that netbooks are pieces of stuff?
That could be Steve's opinion, but I don't think that's really where this market lies. It's not if you buy a netbook, you want all that stuff.
That's the difference here. Is that it seems like Apple is making an appliance.
Yeah,
and they're making
my point exactly.
Toaster. They're making a blender. This is
an internet appliance.
This is not for geeky people. This is for folks who just pick it up in the store and go, oh, it does that. Oh, it's so fast. Oh,
exactly.
And then want to take it home.
And they spend a lot of time on MySpace, and they spend a lot of time on Facebook, and a lot of time on other.
You could use this with Facebook, I think, just fine. This keyboard's good enough to do Facebook, for crying out loud.
Or 3 or 4, characters at a time.
You know what Facebook's going to have to do, though, is they're going to have to replace Farmville and all those Flash games with something else.
Well, Calcanis has the second version.
I know, with Farmville. It would be a good Farmville device. I don't understand why. I understand why Apple is basically Apple has said we're going to take a little hit because we want to kill Flash.
Well, and that's interesting because a lot of people that I've talked to say they won't get it because it doesn't play Hulu. And the reason it doesn't do Hulu is it doesn't.
So what's the answer? Apple says we're going to make it so that none of our portable devices support Flash. There's 75 million iPhones out there. What do you think Hulu's going to do? Hulu's going to figure out a way to do it in H.264.
Hulu does crazy stuff, though. Like, we don't want it in boxy, and we don't want people to watch anything older than 5 episodes.
Then,
so,
I think
I don't know that
I'm certainly, as a content creator, making sure that we have a version that works on the iPad. Sure. Wouldn't that be the smart thing to do?
Yes, because you're smart.
Well, that's Hulu, then. You can't,
Hulu does stuff
I think
that's
Hulu will
counter
cave
to their own success.
Steve, but weren't you just savaging the networks for not being able to make an intelligent decision about smart consumers to save their lives at a certain trade show a few weeks ago, Leo?
Well, they are. They're morons, and so Hulu could conceivably do something stupid.
What I'm thinking,
but I think Apple's point of view is, well, in fact, let me read to you.
Right.
Steve Jobs had a town meeting with Apple employees late last week. This is from MacRumors.com following the launch. Actually, it's from Wired. Wired says two of the things that Jobs talked about. Jobs says Adobe is lazy and blames Adobe for a buggy implementation on Flash on the Mac as one of the reasons they won't support it. Quote, Apple does not support Flash because it is so buggy. Whenever a Mac crashes, more often than not, it's because of Flash. No, Steve, that's not true.
I don't think that's true.
No one will be using Flash, he says. The world is moving to HTML5, and I do agree with him on that. And I think this is clear. That's what Apple's trying to do, is they don't want one company, Adobe, to have so much control, so they want to go to an open standard.
Unless it's them.
Yeah, unless it's them.
Yeah. Part of what's so sad, though, is especially so many large corporations, because of the level of perceived control it gives them over the content on the website, run everything in Flash. And it's desperately unfortunate because it makes the pages load slower, especially the initial...
Accessibility goes to crap.
Accessibility goes to crap. depending on how good their programming is or their designers are, the accessibility across different screen sizes waxes and wanes. It's unfortunate, and it's also, an absolutely abysmal resource hog, especially if you tend to do silly little things like have 25 windows open.
YouTube has an HTML5 beta going on right now. You can join it by going to youtube.com/HTML5, and all the videos will now be H.264 without the Flash wrapper. Just do it and see what the CPU difference is. It's like night and day.
It's huge.
Now, I know everybody who watches our live stream is watching Flash because our providers do it in Flash, but if you watch on the iPhone or the Android platform, Ustream's stuff is not Flash. It's H.264. That's why it works on the iPhone. We'll be sure to include that kind of a stream into an iPad application. And I would imagine that everybody else, except maybe somebody stupid enough to say, why? Well, look, why would Hulu care about Flash? They're not in the Flash business.
But they don't care about accessibility as much as they care about making a splash. And so as long as people can watch it on their computer limited, they're fine with that. They actually don't want it on the mobile platform. They want to use it as a barker to get people to watch the broadcast. So that's why they're not wanting it on Boxy. That's why they don't really care about it. That's why they haven't come out with a mobile app that makes Hulu easily accessible on a bunch of different mobile platforms. So they're fine with Flash because it locks it down for them.
Don't they understand the real competition is not mobile platforms? The real competition is BitTorrent. It's the Pirate Bay.
Yeah, they should. And they should understand. And actually, Hulu themselves understands this and wants the networks to understand
It's just Fox and NBC that doesn't.
But they're fighting an internal battle about it.
John, you've been so quiet. What do you think?
Oh, I'm just listening to you guys. You guys are all full of crap.
Oh, good. That's what I thought.
Tell us how it really is, John.
Essentially, all I'm hearing are excuses for the iPad, as opposed to.
No, I gave you a use case, not an excuse.
Well, I mean, a use case, but it's like that's you. I mean, you're like one of the most unusual people in the panel, considering all the fact that you're a tech maven junkie, as it were. You're also doing probably the #1 podcaster in the country, and you have a lot, and you are creating content all the time, and you probably would be reading the New York Times at breakfast rather than talking to your wife and kids.
I don't want to talk to them. They got nothing to say.
Or reading the thing in bed, rather than sleeping. I just don't see a lot of people doing any of that stuff. I mean,
I agree. You might be right. I mean, we'll find out in 2 months if there's a market.
No, I know. I mean, I could be dead wrong, but when I first discussed this thing on the Cranky Geek show with all the other guys who had seen it, it was like, well, I think it's probably going to be successful because Apple's really good at marketing stuff. But then after I started hearing the grousing, which is very unlike Apple mavens, complaining bitterly about one thing or another, or mostly little minor things, and then realizing that this is essentially not a computer. Like I agree with you on that. It doesn't run the Mac OS. It wouldn't run Microsoft Word. It's essentially a giant iPod Touch for senior citizens who the icons need to be bigger. And
I think Apple is the Obama of the tech world.
And I think that it's going to be interesting. I'm now skeptical whether this thing can be as successful as they were hoping. Nobody, by the way, no one's ever done well with this model anyway. And I don't think they did anything outrageously different in terms of, maybe reads books a little better. But nobody has made a pad work. I mean, Microsoft threw a bunch of money after it. This happened in the 80s and the 90s.
But none of them were nearly as usable. I mean, the user interface on this is very
the only thing I see people really jacked up about is the Kindle.
Yeah, that's what, to me, this is the competition for the Kindle. That's what,
I don't know.
I don't see it as
like
netbook.
the bright light shining in my face when I'm reading.
See, that's the problem I have with the Kindle is you have to have a light on.
No, it's like paper. You have to have a light on paper.
Yeah, the Kindle is less fatiguing. I've been reading books on LCD screens literally for like 15 years now. I think the first one I read was a Neil Gibson,
one of them guys.
Gibson sci-fi book back in like '92. It came on a 3.5-inch floppy. I ran it my Core 2 Duo, but it's fatiguing on the eyes to read on an LCD screen. I mean, we do it all day at work, but it tends to be, people complain about it more.
Yeah, somebody said that. They said that. We read them all day at work, but the last thing we want to do is come home and read more on the LCD.
When we read at work, we read in a different way. We don't
We're skimming around
a book for a couple hours at a time. Right. We look at it, we look away, we read.
I don't think we'll know until I get it home, but I plan to replace the Kindle with it and then see. I'll let you know. But I'm you're right. If it's fatiguing, I won't. be happy about that.
You're not. I mean, Leo, don't take this the wrong way, but you're not going to replace the Kindle with it. You're going to put the Kindle in a drawer. It's not like you're going to be selling it on Craigslist.
No. The Kindle. Well,
in 2 months, if it's a fail, you'll be like buying a new Kindle.
I don't. Yeah, I don't. I think I've been ready for something to replace the Kindle. A Kindle is not a long-term satisfying proposition to me.
I keep the Kindle right next to my bedside, and I read paper on it in the morning. I read books on it in the evening.
How's it for reading the paper?
I'll carry it around the house. It's good if all you want is to read the couple of top stories
linearly.
of the day.
Yeah, it's not good for skimming or jumping.
Good for flipping through the paper.
Yeah,
it's not the same experience.
That's why I'm looking for the iPad. I like that.
And I think the iPad is good for that. I think it's going to be a middling success. I think it's going to be a little more popular than the Apple TV, but it's not going to be nearly as popular as the iPod or the iPhone.
So here's why I say that Apple pulled an Obama. Obama's pissed off people on the left because he's not progressive enough. The right hated him because he's too liberal. So everybody hates him. And Apple's done this basically. What they've done is it's not geeky enough for the Apple fanboy geeks, right? So it's pissed them off. And then the Apple haters already hated it anyway, and they're just as glad to jump on this bandwagon. So you've got about 80% of the public going, this thing sucks.
So it's a compromise solution.
Yeah, but let's look at it from another perspective. For one thing, the Apple fanboys do not, and I don't know when this ever happened the way you're describing it, but I've never noticed that they're discerning as a general public.
I think you're right.
They just jump on anything that, if Steve Jobs says it. I don't know if what they were eating or drinking or smoking, but whatever it is, it's fine. And they usually rave about stuff, and they jump all over people who are critical. It's just not happening with this thing.
Yeah.
Actually, I think it has been happening some, or maybe we've just been reading different stories, but I've heard a lot of Steve's giving people what they need, not what they want, which is like one of my favorite marketing quotes.
I know, it's funny because I said the opposite, which is this is not a device you need, but it might be a device you want.
Yeah.
And by the way, Steve, generally speaking, historically, he's the one who coined that you should be selling the sizzle, not the steak, back in the 70s.
Really?
He's always the guy who's giving people what they want, not what they need.
I think the iPad is more sizzle than steak. And I think there might be an analog to it in the Nintendo Wii, where people
just like the iPad.
Said it's a horrible name. It doesn't do anything.
Right.
It's not
crappy compared to the competition.
I mean, it's cheaper, but why would anyone buy a Wii over a PS3 or an Xbox 360? And look who dominated the console market in the past 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, maybe that's a very apt analogy.
I'm going to disagree with this too. I guess I'm going to be disagreeable today.
Go ahead.
The Wii had like some phenomenal new input devices. I mean, the gyroscope and all the things you could do with that controller were astonishing. People were just seeing something that was totally new, and so they started being hypercritical. And it still has some of the best games you can play and some of the cutest things you can do. And it's always been oriented toward younger people, so kids love it. But older people can play it without feeling too humiliated. I don't think that the comparison is the same at all. This thing is not designed for young people. It's got nothing really special and unusual in it that the iPod Touch doesn't have. So I'm not seeing this comparison as being valid.
Wait a minute, though. Nickname is saying in our chat room, and I think this is an apt question, which do you think a child would gravitate towards? Which would they prefer, a touchscreen device or a notebook or a desktop?
Touchscreen device. I tell you what, John, let's do a bet.
Wait, stop. Wait. I want to stop this question because it's specious. The fact of the matter is, I already said, and they probably would gravitate if you said the same thing about a kid and an iPod Touch. What I was saying about the Wii is I was introducing some new paradigms. There's no new paradigm here. It's just a big iPod Touch. So this is not a valid thing to throw at me.
On the iPod.
Well, but what if you say the iPod Touch and the iPhone were the promise, and that the iPad delivers on the promise simply by virtue of having a bigger screen and a faster processor? It just
I think there's
that would be a laughable proposition.
I think there's a lot of people that are using iPhone applications that might actually welcome the larger screen. I mean, there's been situations where I've said, if I could just connect a stupid keyboard to my iPhone, there's a lot more I could do with it. Is it worth $500 or $630 to have that larger screen? I'm a little less stoked about it than I was on the day it released. But it's a nice piece of hardware. The screen looks good. Everybody's whining about 10x7.
It's very elegant.
It's they didn't need to do a paradigm changing interface because they already did that with the iPhone.
Right.
I didn't say that they had to do
innovate.
that. I'm just saying for the sake of
For the
this
sake of the
argument that you've
analogy.
artificially created, they would have to if you're going to compare it to the Wii.
I think you're right, John. I think that's where the analogy falls down. I mean, there are a lot of similarities, though, between in the appeal to different age groups that don't normally buy this sort of thing, and the fact that it's got a stupid name and all of that sort of stuff. But I think you're right. I think you hit on the key difference, which is what is the wow factor? There was a wow factor with Wii in the Wiimote. And I'm not sure I see one with the iPad where people look at it and go, wow, I've never seen anything do that before.
I like what you said, Patrick. The innovation already happened on the iPod Touch and the iPhone, and because they're such small screens, you really don't see it. I think that John, there is innovation here. It's just that it's not
just
new.
Bigger.
Well, bigger makes a difference.
Just going bigger is innovation. I think that you're
I don't know that there's
misdefining the
innovation.
word.
I think it's taking the innovation was absolutely done on the iPhone and to a much lesser degree the iPod Touch. They've got a large application base in place. They've got a lot of people looking to make money on the application base. They have a huge population of people that understand and trust the interface, and they basically, all the development for an entirely new platform has already been done on a frickin' cell phone.
Look, I mean, how many times you launch a new computer with 140,000 apps ready to go?
Every
Yeah,
computer
by the way,
that
I
ever
thought that
launches
was one of the-
has millions, unlimited apps.
That was unusual. That's the most unusual thing about this launch. That's never
huge.
happened before.
No, that's huge.
Every
But
computer you buy has more apps
if
than
I
the
want to be
iPad or the
argumentative, which
iPhone.
apparently I do, let me say that you're talking about 140,000 phone applications for a little handheld device that now all you're doing is just blowing them up as if that's appropriate.
No, and you're right. I played a game, Assassin's Creed, that was designed for the iPhone screen, and when you blow it up, they say 2x on the button, but really it's 2x each dimension. It's 4 times bigger and jaggy as hell. So
Yeah.
application developers are going to have to rewrite. I don't know how hard it is to rewrite, but to really take advantage of that real estate, they're going to have to rewrite. On the other hand, I think of a few applications that I love on the iPhone that it would be great on the iPad. I'm thinking of my Sonos remote control for the Sonos Zone player would be great. I'm thinking Mint would be fantastic, especially if you wrote it to have more information. There's a lot of applications that would be very sweet on that. Imagine what you would do with TweetDeck. TweetDeck is really
absolutely.
Yeah, it's too big for the iPhone. You don't get those columns, but it's just a little more real estate. Wouldn't that look nice on that screen?
Yeah.
So I think that there's, and I tell you, I'm telling you, Bejeweled.
Yeah, well, because those
Peggle.
things don't care if it gets jaggy. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, Bejeweled would be beautiful on there. It'd be a great Bejeweled device. Crossword puzzles, wouldn't it be great? It's made for Sudoku.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's going to be that hard. And I would love to hear email from people who are developing iPhone applications, but I don't see, in some cases they may have to do new texture maps, but I don't see a lot of applications having difficulty scaling to a larger screen. Yeah, are they going to have to do a point release to do it? I don't doubt it.
Yeah, but it can't be that hard, right?
All right.
They
Well,
got
anyway,
2
I think
months.
that people in the chat room are moaning that we're belaboring the point.
No, they hate everything.
Twitter.
We talked about Twitter, and they hated it. But there's no
Twitter. I'm supposed to tell you to stop now.
there's no evidence that this is the biggest story of the month, maybe the year. Come on, we
Yeah,
gotta
no, but
talk
I think the
about
subtopic is what they're complaining
it.
about.
Oh,
not
all right,
just
we'll move on to
I do want to play SimCity on the iPad, though.
There you go.
Because
And
that
you
gets
already
really
own
cramped
it.
on the phone.
And you already own it. And when you plug in your iPad for the first time, all of those apps are going to transfer over.
Yeah.
I think it's going to look. I don't care if it doesn't sell. I'm not trying to argue you and convince you that this is a great thing. I see a use for it, and I think that there is a market for it. I don't know how big it is. I loved the Apple TV, and that's been a bomb.
Oh, yeah. I'm a big fan of the Apple TV, but I know it's not successful.
Oh, it's a huge
It's a
flop.
horrible failure.
Now, according to TechCrunch, the Kindle sold 3 million units. I don't know how accurate this is. Millions is all
Actually,
Amazon.
this is undocumented.
Amazon that was saying they've sold 3 million units.
No, Amazon said millions.
Amazon said stuff that led people to read the tea leaves.
And then
decide
Mike
that it was 3
Arrington said,
million.
according to my sources,
He's
which
not
have
the
been
only one. A few other
accurate in the
people have
past,
said that too, but
3 million. Well, 3 million in 2 years is not anything to write home about. And this is an interesting point because Amazon is acting like they're in the Kindle business, not in the book business. Amazon has reacted very badly, in my opinion, to the iPad, and has really started a turf war. And this is all
How's
about
this?
Well, Macmillan. You heard this whole Macmillan story, right?
No, I'm not following this.
Oh, okay. So I'll tell you about it in just a second. We're going to take a break and come back and talk about it. But I think this is
Good teaser, Leo.
there's a problem, as I've mentioned before, with teasing in a podcast. It just makes people skip the ad.
Yeah, but it was still you're a natural. You can't get away
I can't
from
help
being
it.
the pro that you are.
It's built into my radio DNA.
Nothing makes a tease better than pointing it out.
By the way,
Nothing makes a tease better.
you've
than
been teased. Now, please don't fast forward to the ad. What I was talking about is not that interesting. This is much more interesting. We've got a brand new product to tell you about from the folks at Carbonite. You know, I talk about Carbonite Online Backup, and one of the things I hear all the time from people is, that's great, but it's for one computer. I would love to see something like this for the enterprise. I'm very pleased. This is the first time anybody has ever told you about a brand new product from Carbonite. I've been talking with David Friend and the Carbonite team about this for a year. I'm really excited to introduce Carbonite Pro for small businesses. You can take a look at it by going to carbonitepro.com. Now, you're familiar with Carbonite Online Backup. It's the automatic PC or Mac backup designed for individuals. It allowed you to back up everything on your computer, all the personal files and everything automatically over the internet. Uses AES 256-bit encryption. You set the key, so it's private. 128-bit SSL to upload it, so it's absolutely secure. Really is a great service for individuals. We've been recommending it for a long time. This is a new package for small businesses, Carbonite Pro. Don't need any extra hardware. Now, you already have an existing backup solution, I presume, in your business. This works hand in hand with it to give you off-site backup. You get a centralized admin dashboard with backup status, as many computers as you want. Each employee can access their own backup files, if you let them, of course. You can be notified. Your office can be up and running in no time because each employee can go, okay, I'm getting my files back. It is very affordable. Starts as low as $10 a month for your entire office. I'm going to tell you how you can do it free for 30 days in a second, but let me give you an idea of how the pricing will work. If as an example, let's say you have 5 gigabytes of backup spread over 8 computers, $25 a month. 18 computers, 5 gigabytes, $50 a month. We're talking $10 to $50 a month for peace of mind for you and your employees. That's less than if you got Carbonite for each individual machine. And the additional admin features really make it a great solution. Now, this is a perfect solution if you've been avoiding kind of this whole problem of off-site backup. You didn't want to deal with it in your business. If you don't have an IT department and you don't want to have to become an expert in this stuff, a great solution. Now, I want you to try it free for 30 days. There is no coupon code needed for this because we're the only people talking about it. So they know if you go to the website, it's because you heard it on TWiT. Go to carbonitepro.com. I really want you to try the 30-day trial and give them feedback. This is really a preview for the TWiT audience and a chance for you to really take a look at what this new product from Carbonite is. I'm just thrilled. I immediately installed it for our office because we have we bought a $20,000 SAN storage area network. I mean, really, I thought that was very expensive, and it died and lost all the data. And I was told,
expensive.
Yeah. Well, no, and then I was told, oh no, you want it to be absolutely reliable so you don't lose data? That's the $100,000 version. Oh, how could I have been so cheap? So I'm looking for a way to back that up and to back everything else up on our network, and this is the solution. Thank goodness. I wish I'd had it 2 weeks ago. CarbonitePro.com. Really thrilled to be able to bring it to you for the first time anywhere on TWiT. So here's the story, John. I think you'll be very interested in this. Macmillan, which is a big publisher. I can't remember all their imprints. Henry Holt. Is Random House Macmillan?
Everybody's owned by Pearson.
Well, except Macmillan.
No, I think Macmillan is too.
So it's a division of Pearson.
Well, Simon & Schuster is CBS. That's the only one I know.
So confusing. There's only 3 big publishers, right?
They're all gone.
So here's the deal. Macmillan says to Amazon, we don't like it that you set the price on our books on the Kindle. We don't like $9.99. We want to charge $15.99. And oh, by the way, Apple's letting us charge whatever we want in the iBookstore. So on Friday, Amazon's response was to pull all Macmillan books from the Amazon website, including print books. And the only way you could get a Macmillan book on the Amazon site is to go to a third-party seller. You could not get it from Amazon.
Right.
Well, there you have it.
Macmillan wants to go as high as $15. This is the same battle that Apple had on the iTunes store with the music industry. Remember, Apple wanted to keep it at 99 cents. The music industry said, no, we want 3-tier pricing, $1.29, 99, and 79. And now the way Apple got it worked out was they said, okay, we'll do it, but no DRM. And so when the iTunes Plus started without DRM, the new tiered pricing, everybody was happy. We got rid of DRM, and the record industry got their buck, because basically everything's $1.29 now. So that's really what they
Well, the story that everyone in the chat room says, Leo, Amazon caved, they caved.
Well, according to TechCrunch, this is the latest. And again, consider the source. Lena Rao writing on TechCrunch just minutes ago. Amazon just posted an announcement saying it gives up. It gives in. You win. Dear customers, Amazon said.
This is Amazon's old trick.
Yeah. Yeah, they did this before, didn't they?
Macmillan has a monopoly over their own titles.
Yeah, they publish them, for crying out loud. Macmillan, one of the big 6 publishers, has clearly communicated to us that regardless of our viewpoint, they're committed to switching to an agency model and charging, I don't know what that means, $12.99 to $14.99 for ebook versions of bestsellers and most hardcover releases.
That means Amazon doesn't get to be the wholesaler and the retailer at the same time.
Yeah.
That's what that agency model
You're not a bookstore. Yeah. You are a bookstore, in other words, because that's what happens in the bookstore, right? Is that Macmillan says this is the price.
This is the price. That's why it's printed on the book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the bookstore does. If the bookstore discounts, it comes out of their pocket, not out of Macmillan's pocket.
Who pays the MSRP on a book? I mean, Borders does 30% off. Even the small bookstores.
But the way it works, as I remember, and John, you probably know better than anybody, but as I remember, is that the book publisher sets a retail price and collects half of that price as its money. Whatever the retailer wants to charge above that half is the retailer's profit, which could be a full 50%, or if the retail wants to discount. And in fact, Amazon discounts some titles and makes less money. But I think what's happening here is when Amazon charges $9.99 in the Kindle, it's cutting Macmillan's cut as well, right?
Yeah, and I didn't think that was the case, but that's what this implies.
Amazon says, we have expressed our strong disagreement and the seriousness of our disagreement by temporarily ceasing the sale of all Macmillan titles. You know, can you say antitrust action? I mean, this sounds illegal to me.
Where's the trust?
I don't know. You know, it's going to be questionable. The antitrust issue is the fact that they're vertically integrated and they have a device that nobody else has.
They're not really a bookstore.
But with the Apple machine coming out and
maybe there's competition. Yeah.
You know, I don't know if you could make the argument it's antitrust. It's just mean-spirited.
Didn't Amazon just change its pricing so that anybody who agrees not to put DRM on a book gets to keep 70% or whatever? They
did. They flip-flopped it.
Yeah.
It used to be 30-70, now it's 70-30.
Right. You just have to enable text-to-speech and not have DRM, and then you get the same model. You can set whatever price you want, and you keep 70% of it.
Amazon continues on to say, we want you to know that ultimately, however, we will have to capitulate and accept Macmillan's. This is like the cable war in New York City over Fox 5. This is like...
Sounds more like Goering.
God, we will capitulate and accept You just wanted me to do it in German, didn't you?
Oh, yeah.
And accept Macmillan's terms because Macmillan has a monopoly over their own titles. Well, of course, they publish them, for crying out loud. What does that mean, they have a monopoly?
Well,
you can't buy a Macmillan book from anyone else,
right? And books are different in that way, right? Because if you write a book, you have
can't sell it to 3 publishers
to sell that whole book,
right?
And that
you could, but they'd all have to agree to it.
Yeah, right. But
and
most
of
the time, you don't.
Of course not.
And we will want to offer Macmillan books to you even at prices we believe are needlessly high for ebooks. Now, that's a good point they're making. There's no print here. There's no truck. There's no ink. There's no
remainder system.
Yeah.
They have to take returns and resell it.
So they're saying this is $15 is too high for ebooks. Amazon customers will at that point decide for themselves whether they believe it's reasonable to pay $14.99 for a best-selling ebook. Apple. We don't believe that all of the major publishers will take the same route as Macmillan, and we know for sure
they will now.
Yeah. No, I have still a lot of friends in the publishing business back there in New York City, and they hate Amazon. And one of the things is not so much the fact that, there's no printers, there's no trucks, and there's no the rest of it. But the problem is that what you have a bunch of grousing writers and agents, because the typically, especially with bestsellers, which is what we're talking about here, they don't take the kind of mediocre little royalties that you and I would get of maybe 10 to 15% of the wholesale price. They take a piece of the retail suggested retail price, and it's a big chunk.
Yep.
Well, now if the retail price goes from $40 to $9.95, well, who's going to be complaining the most?
I don't know.
Now the writer gets what? Nothing?
Math is hard. I don't know. Who? The authors. Okay.
Yeah, I mean it's a fight that Amazon's been in since the 90s when they started undercutting the prices. I mean they sort of were the leaders in this business of chopping down prices on stuff. In some cases, selling niche books for less than they paid for them in order to grab business. And independent booksellers were crying foul back then because they're like, look, we can't compete with this because they're not taking a profit on some things and driving us out of business.
Let me tell you a little story I heard today. Last night, a major author was about to appear on a major network radio show and was shocked to learn that his book was no longer available on Amazon. He couldn't list it on his website with his Amazon affiliate link, which, by the way, is a hell of a lot more money than we ever got for royalties. And was furious and said he's talking to other authors about a class action lawsuit against Macmillan because he lost a ton of money because when he made that appearance, he didn't sell any books. I mean, there's some authors want to be on Amazon, John, regardless of the cut.
Yeah, but you're talking about a guy, if your guy's making most of his money on affiliate sales, he's not the same kind of, he's not a Danielle Steele, I can assure you. And the guys, and the publishing business is just like any other media business where the big names, I mean, this is like the record industry, the show business model for the recording industry, where Britney Spears brings in more money than almost everybody else, and everyone else is a lost leader. Well, these people, the Danielle Steeles and the Tom Clancy's and all the rest of them, the Grishams, these are the guys who wag the tail. And what they say goes. These other guys who are moaning and groaning, they sell 10,000 books, maybe 50,000 books. It's nothing. And they have no influence whatsoever.
What if Apple did on the iBook store what they did with the iTunes store and let authors sell books directly without a publisher? And let them set price, as apparently they're going to do for publishers. Wouldn't authors prefer that model?
I mean, you can already do that sort of by putting your book out as an app.
You could do that on Amazon even, right? Oh, yeah, as an app on the iPhone store, right. In fact, a lot of people do that. In fact, I think the iPad might be a really good way to do that because you could do multimedia. You could put video and audio in an app. You could make it a really cool book.
Make it a book.
A book. Well,
that's the sign.
I think there's a future in that, but not for these big names.
No, Danielle Steele doesn't know how to do multimedia.
Well, and it's similar to the music business, right? Where the big huge stars like John is talking about are really the ones stand to lose the most from the new system, but the new system's coming, and so all the battles are how do we get to keep as much of the money that we used to make under the old system in the new system, because this whole supply chain in publishing is just getting torn apart. You don't need to have all of that stuff that Leo was talking about with the warehouses and the trucks and the middlemen.
Just like music, it's the same thing that happened in the music industry. Anne Rice, by the way, according to Who Me in our chat room, has posted on the Kindle forum saying she's thinking about doing that, going direct. If you were a name like Anne Rice with a huge following, and you said, I'm going to put my next vampire book out by myself. She writes Jesus books now.
Yeah. But if they're popular, put your name
I bought
on
it.
Sell it.
Didn't Stephen King have and I believe it was pre-Kindle, but
yeah.
Didn't Stephen King have a rather dramatic failure with this recently?
Yes. Well, but you're right. It was pre-Kindle. He published a chapter at a time, and he wanted people to pay for it directly. And he said, I didn't make nearly enough money. And so
chapter at a time when there wasn't an ebook reader.
He also had a blackmail scheme because he said, I'm not going to finish the book unless enough people buy it. It was a real Oral Roberts kind of yeah. I don't know. I like the idea of disintermediating the publishers, but I also think that Amazon poses a real threat because this is fairly monopolistic. They're trying to set the price. And it's interesting that they're doing it now when the real competition's appearing from Apple as well as Barnes & Noble.
Well, and Sony's got a wireless device now. They're in the game again. They're not behind the curve. So and the Nook is out there too. Right. And
I think, though, the iPad sales will, in the first year, dwarf all three combined.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Can I
mean
write
people
that one
actually
down?
use them to read books.
Well, that's what Jobs said, isn't it? He says, who reads anymore?
Yeah, that's right.
I'm not going to build a device for people who read. That's like 20% of the population.
He also said video didn't belong on the iPod.
Yeah,
and
he's a
look what
little
happened to that.
disingenuous, yeah. I'm again getting back to the iPad. I think as a content device where you read a book or you read a magazine or you read your newspaper, I mean, this can be pretty cool.
I think it's better for magazines, for periodicals.
It's great for periodicals.
Magazines and newspapers.
And the Kindle really falls down on periodicals. It's not color. You can't skim.
What's the news about Twitter today?
We haven't pissed off enough people. What's the latest from Twitter?
You need a bumper.
The Twitter bumper. Let's see. There must be some other stories. I'll tell you what. Let's take a break while you guys search for something to talk about. GoToMeeting, friends. GoToMeeting from the folks at Citrix. This is the way that I get out of traveling all the time. Let's face it. My ad agency wants me to go meet these clients all the time, right? They say, we got to go to New York. We got to go to New Jersey. We got to visit people. We got to meet them. We got to press the flesh. And I just say, haven't you heard of GoToMeeting? Of course they have. They sold the ad. And they say, oh, yeah, GoToMeeting. We should use that. Yeah, you should use that. GoToMeeting saves you time, trouble, and money traveling. That could kill your company's profits. With GoToMeeting, you could do more and travel less. Make those sales presentations, do the product demos, train, collaborate. Just about any conference call is better with GoToMeeting. I hold all my meetings with GoToMeeting. I don't leave this room. GoToMeeting.com/twit. You'll find out why. Less than $50 a month. You hold as many meetings as you want, as long as you want, and that includes voice over internet and free teleconferencing. $49 a month. GoToMeeting.com. Try it free for 30 days right now. GoToMeeting.com/twit. That's the website. We use it with Maxwell's House, some of our shows. I use it to prepare. We're going to, I'm doing a big presentation at Macworld Live, in which we have a bunch of performers, and we're trying to figure out, we don't have rehearsal time. They're all over the place. And I suddenly said, what do I mean rehearsal time? GoToMeeting. We'll do a GoToMeeting with everybody. This is the best way to do it. GoToMeeting.com/twit. You try it out, and you tell me what you think. We thank them so much for their support of This Week in Tech. Did John blank out his screen? What?
It's foggy.
Looks like a piece of. It's foggy in
John's house now.
Dvorak cottage. He does that. It's like he's going off and doing something in the same room. I don't understand.
I got a story.
Yes, sir.
You might catch the articles that Comcast is starting IPv6 trial because they're finally running out of IPv4 addresses.
No kidding.
The sky has slowly been falling for a decade now, and it's getting closer to our heads.
Yeah.
Well, I know, like pretty much all the government sourcing, and this has driven, I think, a lot of the IT industry to follow. Basically, everything has to be IPv6 ready. That's been purchased by the federal government for several years now. But yeah, it was. Ars Technica, I was reading an article. It basically says they're looking for volunteers to be in IPv6 trials. So they've been playing around with it for a while, but now they're actually getting serious about rolling it out to end users.
What the hell? Is Santa Claus in the house?
Oh, the dog tags. Oh. The dog finally woke up.
So how does that work? I mean, is all my hardware and software ready to go and IPv6 compatible?
No. Well, actually, John, it really depends on the hardware and software. Anything you bought in the last couple of years in all the Microsoft and
do I just check a box?
The major operating system should be IPv6 ready. I don't think they're actually going to have to change the cable modem box. It'd be interesting if they had to.
Or if they could push a firmware.
They basically said they're running out of IPv4 addresses. So here we go. Comcast plans 4 trials. This is from the Ars Technica article. The first one will use a transition technique. It's still under development called 6RD. It's a automatic tunneling mechanism similar to 6to4 that's available in Windows. The difference is that R6D only tunnels IPv6 packets across an IPv4 only part of the service provider's network, which is kind of interesting. Then they're actually going to go to native IPv6. Third trial will be basically IPv4 encapsulated in IPv6 to get across IPv6 only parts. Yeah, well,
so that means it'll still. I don't have to change anything.
Right, you don't have to change your router or your.
Although this seems to be more on their network, the test for their network more so than the end users.
As
and then the
as
fourth trial.
Modem. I got you.
So the issue with IPv4 was it had too small an address space because it's 4 dotted quads. So that means 65. What is it? How many? No, 2 trillion. I can't even know. I don't even know. 2 billion addresses, and that's not enough if everybody has an address. But we kind of put off the problem because we were using routers.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like my refrigerator needed its own address. I just had it on my local network.
And it's also that, but the providers themselves minimize the number of IP addresses. They pooled them.
But with IPv6,
there's a lot of shared addresses,
right? Because they have a pool.
You don't need network address translation because everything does get an IPv6.
There's enough. There's enough. Vince Cerf said there's enough. I remember he talked about this on the screensavers, Patrick. There's enough IP addresses in IPv6's space for every molecule in the galaxy to have its own IP address. Well, I guess that's enough.
Yeah. Well, they were saying, I guess from what Comcast was saying is like they've got like 25 million TV, 15 million ISP, 6 million Comcast digital voice subscribers, and so the 16.8 million private addresses they're sitting on in their network space in their assigned.
Well, no wonder they're running out. Yeah.
This doesn't sound too urgent, though, because when you go to sign up, they say, note that submitting this form does not guarantee your participation. So they're not sounding a note desperate. Of like, please, please, hurry.
What do you think about Comcast buying NBC? I mean, here we are. We all worked for a company that was purchased by Comcast, watched it go down in flames.
It didn't go down in flames.
No, it still exists, in fact.
And there's there's some great shows out there. There's some people that
you're being so diplomatic, Patrick.
Wow, he's looking for work.
I must be. Wow.
No, I'm happily employed right now, John. But I mean, it's also because I've still got some friends that still work on Attack of the Show, and it's people say nasty stuff about Attack of the Show because it's not the screensavers. It was never meant to be the screensavers.
Well, it was when it was first named the screensavers.
Well, but I mean, but when they shut it down and relaunched it as Attack,
I mean, I have to say, I resented that just the slightest bit.
But steering the ship towards the original question, do you think what do you think the problems with NBC being bought by Comcast are? I don't think they're going to be analogous at all. Because
I mean, NBC
when Comcast bought Tech TV, they wanted the carriage,
right?
And they bought it for G4.
They didn't buy
like
it for
a
the content.
Present for G4. And with NBC, I think what Comcast is up to is they want someone to take over their channels. They've got G4, of course, and they also have the Comcast Sports Networks, Golf Channel. I may be missing.
So they want NBC to run these channels.
I think they're like, look, you know what? Take these. NBC Universal.
That is an outstanding theory. I like it.
Yeah, but I don't buy it because first of all, I think Comcast channels, some of Comcast channels are actually doing better than some of NBC. And I'm grossly oversimplifying, but NBC itself, NBC's subsidiary, the smaller channels on the network, are doing a lot better than actual NBC.
Yeah, but that's
CNBC
the point. They do that well, and that's a perfect example of what you take that model at doing that, what you just described well, and then dropping it on top of all these other Comcast properties, same management structure, should be a winner.
Are they doing it for that, or are they doing it because they want a movie studio and they want to be a larger presence on the entertainment side of things?
I think that's true also. I don't think it's an either-or question. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, in fact, Comcast has had trouble with its content arms. Remember Liberty? They spun that off. That was the content creation arm for Comcast, and they didn't want to really be in that content business. So you're saying that they still don't want to be in the content business. They're going to run NBC Universal as independent, spin all their content stuff that they're trying to get rid of into that.
Well, I think they want to be in that business, but they don't want to be the ones having to manage it. So they buy the expertise by buying NBC.
Yeah. Right,
kind of similar to what CBS did when they bought CNET Networks was we want people who already do this to be the interactive.
And just kind of let them go off and do their own thing. Well, that would be very good for NBC. I would be
until next Friday's firings.
Yeah, we'll see.
Until the shotguns start
We'll see.
But do you think there's a Comcast NBC conflict coming as far as carriage on the internet? You know, if you've got a Comcast ISP and they start, I mean, are we going to have a net neutrality battle coming after this is
if I were CBS, I'd be a little unhappy about the nation's largest cable company owning a television network, because don't they now have pride of place in there? And they're going to get sweetheart
deals. They already have almost all of NBC Universal channels. Almost all of them are in primary. They're in basic cable. Not all of them, but certainly quite a few of them. I mean, NBC, Telemundo, Bravo, USA.
I just hate it when I see companies merge like this, because it just seems to me it's just going to be bad for competition. And
I agree with you too, Leo.
Wow, John, you're a nice guy. They're going to
I've
pull
been
out a
a very
Hulu.
cable
They might as
today.
well, right? Because they've got Comcast has the fan. What does NBC need? The truth is, all of the people who are participating in Hulu, it's a very uneasy relationship. They don't like Hulu. They want to do it themselves.
Yeah.
CBS does it themselves.
Right, because CBS has TV.com.
Right.
And so Hulu's like, no
way.
You don't belong over here.
And
Unless
NBC, I imagine, will just move to the fan. Of course, if you're not a Comcast customer, that's not such a good thing.
or that TV Anywhere thing
Right.
that Comcast is planning.
Right. They're doing that now. I can subscribe to my TV on the internet, basically. And any channel that I get as a Comcast customer, I can stream. I can watch I Dream of Jeannie.
And that's pretty compelling when you're just, you get the thing mailer and you look at it and you're like, oh, really?
It keeps me as a
What's
customer
this
of their
deal? I didn't even know
high-priced.
about this.
So you go to Comcast.net and you look and you can see almost anything that you can see on your television is now streaming on Comcast.
Right.
Which
How's
to
the
me,
HD quality?
it's not very good. It's like Hulu. It's like everything.
No.
else.
I mean for the made to the regular cable service. Has it gotten better? Because it used to be pretty atrocious here in San Francisco.
How's the HD quality of television shows on Comcast?
Yeah, on the regular cable, not the streaming
Oh.
online stuff. The actual
I
cable
think it looks
stuff.
okay. I haven't really thought about it. It looks fine to me, but I'm an idiot. I don't
Hardly.
know. I can't tell.
So you're not looking at it and recoiling in horror. That's
it looks like high def to me.
That means it's better than it used to be in San Francisco.
Yeah, no, I haven't recoiled.
Okay.
There's no recoil.
There's no recoil. It's recoilless.
He does
but-
hold the remote to his shoulder, though.
Oh, yeah, very important. You don't want to have the TV hit you in the cheek. You get some real bruising. I just a note from our chat room, and I think this is really cool. I have an OLPC sitting right behind me that I've never really used. I bought it when they did that 2-for-1 deal, and I donated, an OLPC to some poor kid somewhere. I don't remember where, and you get one for free, right? Because I wanted to look at the OLPC. Well, there is now at laptop.org, the home of the OLPC, a opportunity to donate your unused, even if it's unworking, OLPC to Haiti. I think that's a really cool idea. If you have an unused XO laptop, you can give it to a displaced student in Haiti. As we know, most of the schools fell to the ground. A lot of students, even if they survived the earthquake, have nowhere to go.
And you can still do the buy and donate as well.
Oh, that's
if
neat.
you want to. But yeah, I think it's a smart idea to say, hey, there's probably a lot of people who bought this to play around with. They don't use it anymore. Let's get it to somebody who can actually use it.
I'm gonna do this tonight. I'm really thrilled to be able to do this. So if you go to OLPC, laptop.org, their wiki.laptop.org, OLPC for Haiti, and they give an address, you can ship it there, and the OLPC Corps field volunteers in Haiti will distribute them as part of rebuilding around Port-au-Prince. I think this is really neat. This is really neat. And and is the original cardboard box required? No. XO laptops are quite tough.
They are it's pretty hard to shell around them. I'll give them that.
They're not going to be able to give you a tax receipt. You're not going to get a charitable deduction here.
Really? Now that's interesting.
Why not?
It says,
You already
due
got
to
one.
legal reasons, on a personal level, we strongly
What
appreciate
legal
your
reasons?
gift.
I think because when you bought it in the first place, you could take a tax
Maybe
deduction
it was a
on that
charitable
purchase.
deduction then. I don't know. I don't
just guessing.
care. How much is it worth? Come on.
Well, I'm just saying it sounds fishy. The
John, you're such a cranky person.
well,
you should do a
the
show
thing is, we did
like
the
where you
No
just get to be
Agenda show
cranky.
this morning.
Yeah?
And it turns out that apparently Haiti is now sitting on top Saudi Arabia oil reserve.
Really? Well, that's good for us, isn't it?
Well,
Actually,
yeah,
you know
no,
what?
it's great for us. Are you
wait a
kidding
minute.
me?
This goes back to Adam's original conspiracy theory that the whole earthquake was created by a giant machine under the ground so that we could march in, save Haiti, and then own the country. So when the oil reserves are discovered, we'll be sitting pretty.
No, he never had. I'm the one who came up with the oil reserves, and we're going to take over the country.
Oh. He was the
came
one
up
with the earthquake
machine.
machine? Okay.
It was a joint effort.
Another reason to
It's a
listen
joint
to the
effort without joints, I might add.
That's surprising.
That's amazing, and I'm not sure
It
it's
is.
true
It's
in the case
amazing
of
to
Adam
me.
Curry. But anyway, he's always token on something. Is it just a cigarette?
Yeah, he rolls his own.
So every time I've ever talked to Adam, like on Skype, just with audio, there's always this going on, and then matches lighting. So that's just tobacco.
Yeah, it's a fact. He used to. In fact, he
lives in Holland. It's not illegal, right?
No, he used to smoke a lot of dope. He stopped smoking it a couple years ago, and he used to, even when he came over, would mix dope in with his tobacco because he's a smoker.
That's a very Dutch thing to do.
One time I was walking down the street with him. I said, "What the heck? How much marijuana you got in that thing?" And so he toned it down a little bit, but now he's got nothing.
Good.
Yeah, I think that is good.
Including
People shouldn't
no brain
be,
cells left.
Once you're past 20 years old, you shouldn't be smoking weed.
NoAgenda.com. Yeah, right.
NoAgendaShow.com.
Sorry, NoAgendaShow.com. And you guys run that whole thing on donations, and somebody told me that you're both making a good living on donations. That's what I thought. That was actually my reaction exactly.
They have
yeah, right.
It might pay for the papers anyway.
Should we talk about the Anti-Counterfeiting Treaty Act?
ACTA, which has nothing to do with counterfeiting.
Or a trade agreement, not treaty act.
Yeah, it has well, it is treaty, and that's one of the reasons ACTA is going on. And Michael Geist has written a lot about this. He's the Canadian Larry Lessig, basically. He's a lawyer, teaches law I think in Ontario, and writes a great blog. And he was the guy who discovered the terms of this ACTA treaty because they're secret. This is a treaty that countries are being asked to sign, become signatory to, and then, of course, because it's a treaty, it will be rubber stamped by Congress, and it's a very clever backdoor attempt to get the three strikes law enacted, not just all around the world, but here in the U.S.
So we already had three strikes laws.
Not that kind of three strikes. The three strikes I'm talking about, the ACTA treaty. This is so.
Oh, you're kidding me!
This is so horrible. If you are accused, not convicted, not proven, just accused by a rights holder, in other words, the record industry or the movie industry, of piracy on your internet connection, 3 times. So they write to your provider once, you do it again, they write again, you do it again, write again. They have, without recourse to a court of law, without due process, according to the treaty, they'll have the right to cut you off. Your internet service provider will be required to cut you off and then publish your name to a blacklist so that no other internet service provider can sell you access forever. So accused 3 times of piracy, you now no longer have access to the internet for the rest of your life. Isn't that good?
That's
Now, they passed it in France, and the only difference in France, the French Parliament, or whatever they call them, Assemblée Nationale de France de France, said, we're going to add one little fillip. That 3rd time, a judge will have to review it before we cut you off for the rest of your life. But the treaty, the way the treaty is written, they would prefer not to have that court thing. It just slows it down.
And well, the British one that they were talking about was particularly creepy because they were talking about a £50,000 fine if someone in your house is accused of file sharing, starting, what do they call it? I don't know if they had a name for this agency that was basically going to use RIAA cronies or whatever the British equivalent is to go basically like
RIAA cronies.
Yeah, to go after anybody they want and enact new laws without having to deal with silly things like the legislature.
No. And this is a real clever backdoor attempt because if it becomes a treaty, then the U.S. just kind of rubber stamps it and it becomes the law here too. So now they're having secret hearings in Mexico.
Yeah, the 7th round of negotiations happened in Mexico this week.
You have to have secret meetings.
Yeah, because they don't want anybody to know what the rules are.
They claim that it's because it's a national security. That's what the Obama administration says. It's a national security issue.
Terrorist downloaders.
We can't conduct fruitful negotiations on this important anti-counterfeiting agreement unless we do it in secret. And, we are doing it with the best interest of the United States in mind and all of that sort of thing.
Well, if it was just about counterfeiting currency, I would have no objection to this.
It's supposed to be about counterfeiting goods, right? Like DVDs.
Oh, you mean Chinese counterfeiting?
All that sort of stuff. But they're slipping in all of this
Louis Vuitton purses.
Yeah.
Right.
They're slipping in all this IP enforcement that applies to the internet that would actually make it the DMCA worldwide. So you would have the same broken process where anyone can accuse anyone of copyright infringement and have to have stuff taken down and used as a club without any kind of court supervision worldwide. Anti-camcorder rules.
That's the one where where they can search your laptop as you cross the border.
Border enforcement measures would go into place. Statutory damages, which Jamie Thomas is case is actually
Thank
fighting
goodness.
against right now.
Yeah, she
But-
got cut down to $54,000.
sort of like it doesn't
right?
matter. Just making available a file would mean that you could own hundreds of thousands of dollars per file you were accused of bringing across. So, and it would not only have every country that signs onto the treaty have to have these laws in place, but also any country who's not part of the treaty would then come under a lot of pressure
cut off
to join if they want to keep their trade negotiations.
Yep.
And they don't even get to be a part of the secret negotiations.
So right now, Australia, Canada, the European Union, Jordan, Mexico, Morocco, New Zealand, Republic of Korea, Singapore, and the United Arab Emirates are involved in these negotiations. Switzerland and Japan as well. And they're all being held secretly. Thank goodness for Michael Geist, who has really kind of revealed this information.
Yeah, this is a nice website he's got. I'm looking at it now.
Yeah, he's great. Really smart guy. We interviewed him when I was up in Canada doing Call for Help, and people should read up on this. The Electronic Frontier Foundation has an ACTA page as well, EFF.org. And the more you know about this, the more appalled you will be. You know, one of the things, I'll give you an example. In Korea, South Korea, which was famous, I know, John, you were just there, famous for its, high-speed internet and its kind of open internet. They passed ACTA in the Republic of Korea, and if they passed it, yeah, I think they have passed it. And one of the things they ban is internet hard drives. So things like Carbonite, things like SkyDrive.
What?
Things like S3.
It could potentially be used for naughty things, John. We have to make it illegal.
You could, because pirates would use it to store content, off of their system.
Well, that's dumb.
And opposing ACTA or opposing the secret negotiation of ACTA or the provisions in ACTA doesn't mean you support piracy.
No.
It means that you don't want to have people accused of piracy without actually having some proof, and you want the punishment to fit the crime. That's the way I feel. It's not about saying, hey, we think piracy is cool. And that's sort of the message that the RIA and the MPA want to put out there is if you oppose these sorts of measures, well, then you're obviously, supporting the terrorists. You're supporting the pirates. And that's not what it's about at all. It's about having fair rules. That the way the DMCA works right now is ridiculous. If I just don't like Leo, I can go and send takedown notices against him without any basis and hope that he doesn't have enough money to come back and prove I didn't have any basis, and then I pull his content down. It's censorship.
We got to really fight this stuff. These guys are nuts. Just nuts. Anyway, find out more, EFF.org. You can read about it. You can read about and help fight it, too. I mean, I'm a sustaining monthly donor to EFF.
In the chat room, we're like, don't send takedown notices against Leo. That was just an example.
Please don't.
Don't send takedown.
Please don't even mention that it's possible.
I'm not going to do that.
Please. Hey, as long as we're unhappy with the Obama administration, here's some more good news. With the release
Who's
Monday,
unhappy?
Leo is.
I'm unhappy.
Oh, okay.
Well, let's just because of ACTA, and now this with the release of the president's budget request, NASA will get the marching orders from. This is from the Washington Post, the new administration's marching orders, and there's nothing in there about going to the moon.
No more budget for the moon.
I thought they were going to go to the moon.
No, the budget kills the Constellation program. This is the one that George W. Bush, my hero,
it doesn't fund it. It doesn't kill it.
It just doesn't fund it. You can go to the moon, but we won't pay for it.
That's kind of what they're saying, right?
Yeah.
They're saying privatize it. If private companies want to go to the moon, we encourage that.
It also kills the Ares 1 rocket, which was the successor to the space shuttle. Already we've spent billions developing it.
And that undermines Mars because the point of going to the moon was not so much just to return to the moon, but to develop the ability
to
leapfrog onto Mars.
Former NASA Administrator Michael Griffin views the Obama budget as disastrous for human spaceflight. Quote, it means essentially the U.S. has decided they're not going to be a significant player in human spaceflight for the foreseeable future. The path they're on with this budget is a path that can't work. I mean, yeah, I guess we're in economic trouble, but boy, it just seems like it's so little money, really.
Yeah, they never wanted to do it in the first place.
I guess not.
I mean, there's that latest thing.
What's that? You mean the puffin?
No, the latest thing.
I want one of
they're
those.
Going to privatize the whole space program.
Well, that's all right. Maybe that'll work. The budget is boosted by more than $1 billion a year, and that's what you're going to hear. Of course, is that wait a minute, what are you talking about? We're increasing the budget by $1 billion a year, but they need $3 billion to pursue the human spaceflight program. So it's underfunded, I guess. But you know, Paul Allen could just give them a couple of bill.
Fund the whole thing.
Bill Gates, another couple of bill.
Well, and that is kind of what they're hinting about is like we would like to push this into the private sector more. You want to go to the moon? Fine. Get the rich people to go to the moon.
Get the rich people. That's the problem. They're going to leave us here.
To the moon.
They're going to leave us. We're all going to be alone. All the rich people will be living on the moon in their special moon penthouses, having super moon parties.
Hey, I'm going to tell you right now, they're going to be freezing their butts off, those people.
Well, you know, Paul Allen built that big yacht just so he could be the king of the party, right? I think Paul should build a little moon unit.
I think it is scary how little science we fund right now. When you consider that we let the LHC go to Europe, we have killed the space shuttle program, so we're now relying on Russia to get up into space and back. And now this, where we're underfunding the one major project that we had going on, other than some very important and very good telescopes and surveys and missions like that, I'm not sure what we're up to and how we maintain a lead in scientific advancements and scientific exploration.
I understand people say, oh, no, you got to spend the money here on Earth. We're in crisis. We got a fiscal, budgetary crisis, but also we've got, poverty, and we should spend this money, to support people at home. But I think there's also is there not some benefit to the thought that you might want to leave the planet, find out more about the planet, maybe even...
Yeah, but, I mean, we've also got a Congress that for several years managed to, it's just an administration that was against stem cell research. We've got a population divided on what's appropriate in medical research. I mean, it's sad, but a lot of the advancement in science is just,
we can't afford it.
It's not as popular. It's not even not afforded. People are outright against it, at least until someone in their family suffers a traumatic accident, and then suddenly maybe it's not so evil after all.
We seem to have an anti-science bias that's kind of crept into the conversation, largely because the educational system, and I've argued this, I've always thought Obama should have emphasized that to begin with.
It's a vicious circle, too, because the less
you
you're
get a bunch of dummies, and then they don't understand it, they're just ridiculous. It's a vicious circle of dummy-dumb.
This country, going back to Adlai Stevenson, has always been anti-intellectual, anti-egghead, right? That's kind of...
way before Stevenson.
Oh, yeah. Go back to Andrew Jackson, I think.
Was he an egghead?
Yeah, he was the first of the presidents. They're like, I'm not part of that liberal elite.
Damn smart pants.
I'm going to let my friends into the White House.
Yeah. No, he was complaining. He wasn't an egghead. I think the first real egghead we had in office, which is a term, by the way, an endearing term that was used in the 50s by our parents, was Woodrow Wilson.
He was a professor at Princeton.
Actually, Adams. John Adams was an egghead on some level. He was a functional lawyer.
John Adams was a very smart guy.
True.
I saw the HBO TV show. I know all about him.
It looks a lot like Russ Pitts.
But Thomas, I mean, look at this.
Just looks like Russ Pitts. Exactly right. I never thought of that. Paul Giamatti looks just like the web producer we used to have, Russ Pitts. It's the sideburns, and the grouchy attitude.
Demeanor.
Yeah, the demeanor.
But I mean, Thomas Jefferson was certainly
he founded the University of Virginia.
He studied architecture.
So do you think we have a kind of do you think we have a bipolar relationship to intellectuals, or do you think
the country has always been bipolar?
Kill them.
I mean, we've gone from like 80% of the population living in rural environments to 80% of the population living in cities to like 80% of the population living in the suburbs now. I mean, the country has always been divided. It has always had radical differences. Even the founding of the country was one. There's a Freudian slip. Was like, if you read about the battles that went on between the northern states.
And I say this as a parent about to have a senior in high school and to enter college, and then another one shortly thereafter. Do you think we could ever in this country do as, say, Sweden does and have free higher education, or is that just really crazy?
Well, we did have free higher education in the state of California, and then the people responsible for it decided it was much more important to preserve. And there's two arguments. There's Proposition 13, right? Proposition 13 was put in place in California.
It was a property tax cap.
And that's because they were killing us with property tax jackups.
Well, it wasn't, which because the value of the land was going up, right? So people, and I've seen this happen. case in point, like ranchers, and there were a couple of ranchers near Vail, Colorado, and because Vail would, and suddenly like 1969 or 1970, they start this ski resort, property values became astronomical. So people had been ranching there for 100+ years. Suddenly there was absolutely no possible way to pay the property taxes on their ranches, so they got pushed out, right? Here in California, people who had been living in L.A., in Berkeley and San Francisco and all these other cities, Orange County, San Diego, the property values started going berserk. So people, especially people on fixed incomes, could no longer pay the property taxes, would have to sell or lose their homes. So the idea was that, okay, we're going to lock this down. We're going to cap the cost of property taxes, but they did it for civilian. They did it for people. They did it for businesses. So there's businesses that are sitting on unbelievable amounts of property that the property taxes haven't changed on them since, what was it, John, 76, 77 when this was
a while ago, yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
And then you have all of the other expenses, the population explosion in California.
But you had to stay on the property to get that deal. You couldn't, be jumping around. I mean, if you moved, you
get reassessed.
A different rate,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
But I mean, most of the people, if they moved, they were moving to significantly less expensive places and more rural sections.
It made sense for older people. It made sense for fixed income people. People were being taxed out of their homes. I understood that, but also
the reality is
killed
that
higher education.
Killed
education.
No, I don't think so.
But
here's
being
another one
anti-tax
for you
is not
that would
the
kill
same as
higher
being
education. They
anti-intellectual.
decided to come up with the lottery. Remember when they started the lottery? It was going to be for education.
Our kids win too was the slogan.
And so they
used.
bring up the lottery. Oh, the lottery. Oh, we're going to be a lottery state now, and all the money's going to education. So what do? It all went to education, but the money that used to go to education, they just pulled the plug on it. The education ends up getting less money.
Right.
Well, if we can go from hyper-local to hyper-wide, I don't think anti-intellectualism
this is not tech stuff, by the way. We should probably
US
stop.
problem.
It's a global problem?
I think it's always been there. There's always been this sort of like bring down the eggheads sort of
Bring down
mentality,
the
and it
eggheads.
waxes and wanes over time.
Well, speaking as an
Eat the
egghead,
rich.
I resent it. Eat the rich.
It really bothers
Eat
me when
the
people
rich.
say like, "Oh, you're so
the rich is
scientific
my
about
favorite.
something." Like that's an insult.
Yeah, you're too intelligent.
Yeah.
Can you just dumb it down a little bit? And by the way,
never been
folks,
told that.
what you just heard for the last 10 minutes, that's what happens when we don't talk about Twitter and the iPad. I just wanted to...
We go crazy.
We go crazy.
Let's talk about football.
Pro Bowl. Good idea, bad idea.
How about antivirus tools?
You'd love to do a sports show, I bet.
Oh, man. No, I worked on KNBR when it went sports. The station I worked at in San Francisco, the last radio station I worked at. No, not the last, but one of the last. It went all sports, and I just felt like a fifth wheel. Man, I didn't know anything about sports.
Tech sports.
That was a great tackle.
Yeah.
That's a great
It was so embarrassing. And I had to be president of the Giants, San Francisco Giants fan club. And we went
But you
on.
like baseball.
I had to like baseball. I made that
Baseball
You
is a
got
very
me. You got me the
sport.
ball, I think.
I got you a signed ball.
Yeah, I think so.
I got my dad a Willie Mays autograph. That was cool.
Oh, that would be cool.
When
yeah.
we were campaigning for to get the city of San Francisco to build a stadium for the Giants because they were in the world's worst stadium, Candlestick Park. And we got in one of the faux trolley cars, the motorized cable cars.
The party cars.
Party cars. And Willie Mays and we went to every sports bar in town. And Willie would come in, and and the crowd goes crazy because it's Willie Mays. He's very recognizable in San Francisco. And he'd say, "Vote for Prop W," and they'd go, "Okay," and then we'd leave and we'd go to another bar. It was fun. That was fun.
That's a good night, man.
Yeah, it was a blast. It was really, really fun. And then I'm there. I said, "Will, could you autograph this ball for my dad?" And he did. So that was kind of fun. How did we get started?
We fell off the track,
way
Leo.
over there.
Where the hell are the rails? Can we smarty pants take a break and we'll come back and we'll find one more story or two, I don't know, to talk about.
Perhaps even tech stories.
Please, Lord, give me a tech story. The iPad sucked all of the news out of the room, didn't
We
it?
could talk about Google dumping IE6.
And I think the Google book deal is again on the rails.
yeah,
but God, that's like talking about ACTA. It's another one of them subjects, and this, it's like. Let me talk. This is a tech story. This is something I like to talk about. Audible.com. I loves my Audible. Audible is the audio bookstore. It's funny. I don't even know why they need to advertise because there really isn't any competition. I mean, is there? If you want to listen to audiobooks, it's like a no-brainer. You just go to audible.com and you're listening to the best audiobooks in the world. I used to, when I first started commuting to San Francisco, actually it was before then, before I did the Tech TV in '98. I was commuting to Cupertino in like '94 and '95 doing a TV show for Ziff Davis. That was a 2.5-hour commute each way on a good day. And that's when I started listening to audiobooks. But in those days, it was books on tape or recorded books, and they were coming cassettes, like 20 cassettes in a box, and you'd have 1 month to listen. And if you didn't finish the book in a month, you'd have to send it back and get it back again. Oh, it was a pain. When Audible came along in 2001, my life changed. And now I am such an Audible addict. Audible.com/twit2. You can try it. If you've never done it before, you can try it. 2 books free. Audible.com/twit2. You'll go to the platinum sign up. That's 2 books a month. The first 2 are free. And because the Grammys are tonight, they've got a list of Grammy-nominated books. Yes, they do have a Grammy nomination for audiobooks. So these would be the best books to listen to, according to the Grammy Committee. Michael J. Fox's Always Looking Up, The Adventures of an Incurable Optimist. Oh, how about this? David Stratham and Richard Dreyfuss reenacting the Lincoln-Douglas debates. Now there's something for eggheads everywhere.
Had a distinguished record of service in the Illinois state legislature and had served a term in the lower house of
16
Congress
hours.
as a member of the Whig Party.
I'd love to listen to that. So that's nominated for, how about the dramatization with Edward Herman, Sandra Oh, and Michael Madsen of The Maltese Falcon? Well, I got to listen to that. This is all from Audible, and you get 2 of these for free. So you could.
She was tall and pliantly slender, without angularity anywhere.
I'm talking about you,
Her
Tom.
body was erect and high-breasted. Her legs long.
Whoa, I didn't know The Maltese Falcon was so racy. Wow, Jimmy Carter narrating his own book, We Can't Have Peace in the Holy Land. God, I hope that's not racy. Here's something very racy. Carrie Fisher's book. Is it novel or memoir? Wishful Drinking.
Well, she's got a one-woman show of the same name.
So
I think
it must be a memoir. Let's see what it says. Carrie Fisher tells the true and intoxicating story of her life
that one's racy.
With inimitable wit. Yes. You can only imagine what Carrie...
You want to fit in. Hell, I still want to fit in with certain humans. But as you get older, you get a little more discriminating. Well, my parents were professionally committed to sticking out.
They're all Grammy nominated. How about Nelson Mandela's favorite African folk tales? Samuel L. Jackson, Whoopi Goldberg, and Matt Damon. One of these guys is not like the other. Dean Pitchford, Captain Nobody. I never heard of that one. I don't know what that was. That can't be Captain Nobody there.
Sorry, Tyler just woke up.
Hi, Tyler. Hey, for kids, too, this is a great thing, Patrick. They've got kids' books. So you can put on a recorder and the kids can listen. And studies have shown that kids who are listening to audiobooks read at a higher level sooner. They get to chapter books sooner. It's really a great resource for everybody. I want you to go to audible.com/twit2. Take a look at the Grammy-nominated books. Pick a couple there. Maybe the January customer favorites. This is one of the great things about the Audible site. It's a great way to browse. It'll play on all your devices. By the way, they will work on the iPad. So you can move your books over as soon as you get your iPad, iPhone, Zune, Kindle. Audible.com/twit2. We thank them so much for their support of This Week in Tech. Are you doing, is the Sword and Laser book...
Yeah, we're finishing up Cory Doctorow's Down and Out in the Magic Kingdom.
That is not on Audible.
We'll be doing a new selection this month, and it's open. So
now, so you let your fans help choose the Sword and Laser stuff?
Yeah, we go back and forth. Sometimes we put it up to a vote. Sometimes we take open recommendations. Sometimes we get dictatorial and just.
So how does it work? So you read Down and Out in the Magic Kingdom, which is a great book, and coined the term "wuffy."
Yeah.
And so you read it, and then do you have a book group of the air? I mean, what happens?
Yeah,
next?
so we have one episode where we set it up. We talk a little bit about the background of the book and how it came about, maybe a little stuff to prep you for reading it. Then you read it. The next episode, we do a wrap-up where we talk about, we take comments from people who read it.
You got an interview with Daniel Suarez.
And then sometimes we'll do an interview. So in fact, we're trying to get Cory to
Cory will do it, I'm sure. Yeah, Cory's
if he has
great.
time.
Oh, he'll do it in a minute. Daniel Suarez. Wow.
Yeah,
Who's Daniel Suarez?
Demon and Freedom.
Demon and Freedom. Those are the next 2 books. I just downloaded them. I can't wait. You know him?
No.
That guy.
You should read Demon, John. I think you might like it.
I can't wait. I'm so excited.
I know reading is hard.
I can barely read the newspaper.
That's why you got to get Audible, John. They read to you. It's like having servants.
When you get older, you can't read.
I can't read.
Can't read anymore, and he can feel his legs.
Actually, that's why I like the Kindles, because I could make the type size. Like every book is a large type book. It's good. And then I take
one word on a page.
And I take it to Denny's for the early bird special. Nice. And I fit right in. It's great. Bunch of people like me.
More coffee, Mr. Laporte.
I can't have any more coffee. The prostate's acting up. It's great. It's really a pleasure to go in there. I flash my AARP card, and I can have all the bacon I can eat for $1.99.
You said Grammy Awards.
I did? It is the Grammy Awards, isn't it? Isn't it?
Yeah, it's the Grammy Awards.
Grammy Awards.
Yes. 7 Grammy Award-winning author.
In New York.
Grammy Hall.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was, wasn't that where Tippecanoe and Tyler, too, sang their famous song?
Boss Tweed.
Boss Tweed, very good. See, John, you can't fool
Tweed's
John with
dad.
Shannon Tweed's dad. You can't fool John with the American history references. He's
Founders
right
of
on
Tweeter.
Tweeter. Jeez, we just descended. So the Google book deal looks like it's down and out once again.
When is this going to end?
Never. Because Google's got more money than God, and Amazon is fighting it. Everybody else is fighting it. Because Google, basically the fight is over orphaned works. Everybody agrees that if it's a public domain, Google should be able to scan it, sell it, do whatever they want. But what if it's a book that's not in the public domain technically, but nobody says I own it?
Or even if you...
Well, this is an issue.
Even if it's not orphaned, but you don't speak up, Google gets the right to sell it.
That's the problem.
And if you don't come forth to get the royalties within 5 years, the royalties get split up amongst Google and all the other authors in the business that have spoken up. It's an opt-out situation for every author on the planet, whether you're part of the Authors Guild or not.
So Ursula K. Le Guin wrote a letter on behalf of, I think, 60 other authors saying exactly that. It should be opt-out, not opt-in. I mean, it should be opt-in, not opt-out.
Yeah, right.
You should be, by default, you should retain your rights.
Authors Guild should be able to make this deal with Google for their 8,000 authors, but not for every other author on the planet.
I think that there's still a problem with these orphan works, and it's very annoying. These things need to be either... You know, it's not as though, let's face it, there's some book, let's say, is written about 1945, and it's an economic book that's kind of interesting and might be of value to people studying the science. And you can't make any, it might be worth republishing a small run of maybe 1,000 copies. This is not like something that's going to be a runaway bestseller. It's not going to break anybody if they don't get it, but if the thing just stays buried with the one last copy rotting away in some library basement, I think it's ridiculous. They have to be able to bring these books out. It's not as though that anyone's going to really get ripped off.
Problem with
who's going to get
works
ripped off by some old orphan work that nobody cares about?
If we didn't have copyright law extending for like 3 times the life of an average human, we wouldn't have an orphaned works issue.
That's the problem. We need to fix copyright
I agree.
law.
That's absolutely the case. That
just
needs
as
to be
soon
changed.
as Disney goes out of business, that'll be a possibility.
Well, and now, of course, with the Supreme Court ruling that corporations can basically give all they want to campaigns, that's it. That's never, copyright law will now never change. Right?
Because they'll push all of their candidates in that they want.
Right.
It'll protect copyright law. Well,
yeah, stooges.
Not quite that easy.
Use the right word.
But yeah, it makes it harder.
But it's been the general rule of thumb is that the more money you have to throw at a particular political issue, the more likely you are to win in the age of television and other mass mediums.
It's I thought it was an interesting debate though with the Supreme Court because it is a form of speech to give money to a political campaign and I mean we do protect speech. Is a corporation somehow not?
Back in the golden age, in the Gilded Age, but I mean back in the 1870s, 1890s, I mean the people that if you scale the amount of money that Bill Gates is worth, it's a pittance compared to a bunch of the people that were running the railroads and
Vanderbilts,
and oil industry, the Vanderbilts, and you look at the amount of money that was going around back then. It's already was decided over 100 years ago that corporations had the same rights as American citizens in the courts. So, in some sense...
So that's the problem. Is are corporations really people?
Corporations being
If they're
treated as
people, how come you can't arrest one and throw them in jail for murder when they kill people with their crappy products?
They're made of people.
Therein lies the rub, John. They have all of the upside of being a citizen and none of the downside, and the ability to let the corporation can move on while the officers of the corporation get to take the rap for the decisions made.
That's why I'm a corporation, baby. You better believe it.
Well, even the officers don't have to take the rap in some cases. If a corporation like John says conducts murder, it's just a fine. Nobody is at fault.
Right.
Yeah. Nobody goes to jail for murder
nobody's
because it was a corporation.
Yeah.
And if they're really smart, they declare bankruptcy and shut the corporation down before they can be liable for what they've done.
Yeah, which they shouldn't be allowed to do because that's euthanasia, which is illegal with a person. I'm just saying, this is a classic example of a stupid idea.
Well, it may be a stupid idea, but it's been the law of the land for over 100 years.
It's been iffy law of the land.
It was a 5-4 decision. It's not cut and dried. Obviously, there's more to it. And it did overturn several precedents, previous Supreme Court precedents that said
which is a little weird.
Because money as speech is
we
a
all know
tricky
conservative
issue, right?
judges are not activists and, in fact, are not making law.
Right.
They're just upholding the Constitution as they see it.
So if I have more money than you, I have more speech than you.
Yeah, you have a lot more speech.
So the Supreme Court
you
is
get millions
saying
of dollars
speech
of
isn't equal.
speech. Right. That's a good point.
Tough luck.
That's
well,
a good
the flip
point.
side is this is also America. You can start a company, become rich, and then use that money you've made to be as free speechy as you want, Tom.
You want more speech? Succeed.
Well, that's fair.
Yeah.
Except
we should be the ones talking. Of all the people that have a lot of extra free speech compared to the poor guys in the chat room,
we got
look
infinite
at Leo.
speech. Hey, you may have free speech, but if you cannot go to Gmail and create a label named Buzz.
Yes and no.
It said, well, look, see, it says you cannot. I'm doing it right now. It wouldn't let me do it. You can't create a label named Buzz. It's a reserved system label.
Oh, there's a good
I created a
backstory
label
there.
named Buzz.
No, look at mine. See right there.
I know. I'm looking
Please
at mine,
try
too.
another name. Well, because you know why you can do it? Because you're the host of Buzz Out Loud.
Okay, here's the thing. When you do it in the way you just did it, it
Yeah.
says no. But if you just go up into labels and say type
you
in
found a
Buzz
label loophole.
and press create
What are
new,
you guys
it
talking
says
about?
The conversation has been labeled Buzz, and then it's labeled.
And now you have a Buzz label.
Yeah.
What is bizarre?
But why would they care? Why would Buzz be a
Why would there
reserved
be
label?
I think there's something going on here.
It's the new programming language.
Although when I
Yeah.
click on that label, I say there are no
That's a good one.
conversations with that label.
Patrick.
See?
Even though I just labeled.
So
There's a column there for you, John.
well,
Could be.
They have one called Go. Maybe they're really going to do Go Buzz.
I mean, I understand deleted messages would not be a good label because the system should have that reserved.
Right.
But are they planning on putting some Buzz label in the Reader software that overlaps with Gmail or whatever?
Maybe it has something to do with ringing the phone or shaking
The Buzz tag just
chat
left. It
room.
just disappeared on its own.
Hey, Mr. Google found you.
No
How dare
kidding.
you?
That was weird.
How dare you create a
The
label?
Google police.
The folks who discovered this were the folks at Google Blogoscoped, which is an excellent blog about the Google sphere. He says, looking up the word blog in Buzz in Google, we get several definitions. I don't know how that helps. What does it mean? Does anyone know why this could be?
Well, they better be careful how they use it because CNET has a trademark on some uses.
Really? Buzz
Not
Out
all.
Loud? The word Buzz by itself?
They got Yahoo had a daily or a Buzz report.
Oh, yeah, you
Yeah.
can't do that.
And CNET has a show
Buzz Out
called
Loud.
Buzz Report.
Oh, no, Buzz
Hosted
Report.
by Molly Wood weekly. It's a video show, and so they had to stop it.
Huh. Very
Maybe
interesting.
Yahoo should get out of the house more. Everybody knows that show existed.
Maybe it's called Daily.
All you had to do was Google search on it.
Yeah, seriously.
But I mean, isn't Buzz like a generic word? How can you really own
Yeah, I mean, you
Buzz?
can't. I mean, the actual just the word Buzz, sure. Yeah.
People always ask me, and
use
I'd
that
like
for
to
all
answer
kinds
this once and for all, if they can use This Week In for their podcast. Of course they can, because Mel Allen says it's all right. I don't know.
Mel Allen?
With This Week in Baseball, which predated this show.
Oh, wow.
Mel
That's a-
Allen. Well, how about that?
How about that?
Not quite.
No, I'm working on it. I haven't heard Mel in years. I
This
thought that's
Week
pretty
in
good considering I
Baseball.
haven't heard him in a long time.
And do you know who took over for Mel Allen on This Week in Baseball? Buzz.
Here we
Brainerd.
go again.
Buzz Brett. Oh,
Buzz Brainerd.
there's a tie-in.
Tie-in.
Quick,
Off
fire
the
up
track
conspiracy
once again,
machine.
ladies and gentlemen.
You know,
Sorry.
this show was never on the track. Google says you can't use IE6. They're phasing it out for Google Apps, Docs, and Sites. So France, Germany, and now Google say IE6 is verboten.
And stop at e6.com.
Is there a website?
Yeah, there's a movement.
Good. about time we stopped
really,
IE6.
What is the point
Why?
of
You know
anyone
what?
using that?
I would bet almost
Google's
everybody.
stepping up and doing no evil. First, they're nuancing their relationship with China. Now they're dumping IE6. I think it's all under the do no evil banner.
It's all good.
Who is it that's saying Google is evil? Apple. Apple
Steve
said
Jobs.
Steve Jobs.
What did he say?
He said the
Steve
stuff in
Jobs
China
said
was
that.
BS.
Or it may not be a direct quote.
All right.
But it was.
And that is a very
He
loose
also says-
interpretation of secondhand article.
This is that Wired story. We're getting back to that one. It was so good we want to do it twice. It's the burrito of stories. Jobs says on Google, we did not enter the search business. They entered the phone business. Make no mistake, they want to kill the iPhone. We will not let them. Yeah. Now, Mac Rumors is saying we heard the same story, so we know it's true that Wired reported, and we heard some other things from this town hall that was, Steve hosted on Friday. Apple will deliver aggressive updates to iPhone that Android Google won't be able to keep up with. Ha ha! iPad is up there with the iPhone and Mac as the most important product Jobs has been a part of. Asked about the Lala acquisition, Apple says they were interested in bringing those people into the iTunes team. Mm-hmm. This is a Steve Ballmer quote, if I ever heard one, from Steve Jobs. Next iPhone coming is an A+ update.
Is a what?
A+ update. Is that a term?
Not an A4 update?
A+.
It's an A+ update?
A+ update.
That Steve Ballmer said this?
No, Jobs said that.
Oh.
But it's the kind of thing
sounds
Ballmer
like
would
Steve
say.
Ballmer.
Yeah.
What's going to happen? Well, Ballmer's got the Zune phone coming out, so that'll save the company.
There is a little rumorage that that's going to be the case. Somebody found some Zune phone-ish kind of code in the kit and so forth. That I think that's not a good basis for anything.
I don't think that means that they're going to manufacture a device. It means they're
going to be a
trying
big
work
clunker.
the Zune software into a phone.
Exactly. What Paul Thurrott thought is it merely means that there will be that the media player in Windows Mobile going forward at some point will be the Zune software, and that
makes sense.
Microsoft's already said that, so there's nothing new there. New iMacs for 2010 are going to take Apple to the next level.
Really? Big news.
The next level.
I guess Jobs' quote was actually, "Don't be evil is a load of crap." According to
the Wired article says, I want to go back to that other question first and say one more thing. He says this "Don't be evil" mantra, quote, I can't say it on a bull stuff.
Well, if you go down to the update at the very bottom of the story, there's a person from the audience who disputes the BS quote and says, all he said was "Don't be evil is a load of crap."
Well, that's close enough.
In some way, he related "Don't be evil" to feces. We're not sure exactly how at this point. Now we're turning into CNN.
To poop. It's a bunch of...
He wore a black turtleneck, Tom. Do you think this is a significant extension of the Apple policy? How do you feel about that?
About
load of crap.
This is from the Wired article about Adobe. They're lazy. They have all this potential to do interesting things, but Adobe just refuses to do it. This sounds to me exactly like Steve Jobs. I mean, if it's not, it's exactly how he talks.
I mean, on one hand, it sounds like Steve firing up the troops to gird their loins and go into battle and take over the universe once again. But the reality is Flash has been basically been a heavier and heavier load on the system. They've had the opportunity to offload a lot of the CPU processing to graphics for quite some time now, and they're just now getting around to it.
I have to say that in some ways I'm really encouraged to hear Steve talking like this. Clearly he was really pumped up from a successful launch, what he considered deemed a successful launch on Wednesday. Obviously he wasn't reading the blogs, and felt good, was in fine fettle, and it sounded like he just really kind of he was in a good mood. This is Steve. This is how Steve talks when he's in a good mood.
He's feeling good again.
Yeah, he's feeling his oats.
Yeah.
So
he's black. I mean, he laid down a gauntlet in the iPad. I mean, he basically, we were talking about this last week. He laid down a gauntlet, or earlier this week. He basically said, look, we're the biggest mobile device manufacturer in the world. Go suck it, Nokia. Look at the amount of money we made in Q4. We're doing great. I mean, he threw down against the entire mobile industry right there.
He did it with some suspicious numbers, but he did it. But they're good. Good for him. Good for him. Folks, we're out of time because it's East Meets West in about 4 minutes with Roger and Tom. That's next on the live twit.tv. For those of you listening to the podcast, we thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. Tom Merritt, you'll find on CNET all the time. He's at Buzz Out Loud. And what's the best place to find a Tom Merritt these days?
If you go to tommerritt.com, you can find all the stuff that I do.
You do a lot of other stuff besides Sword and Laser, East Meets West.
Yeah, I do Forecast, Predictions.
I love Forecast. Wasn't Colleen just on that?
Yeah. The first Colleen and Molly Wood episode will be this Thursday.
Wow. The first of many?
First of three.
You
We always
did
do
3
three
episodes?
in a row with our guests now. We changed it since we had you on, and we kind of spread it out over 3 episodes now.
I was only on 1.
You were on one supersize episode.
Oh, I see.
So pretty much all we're doing is taking the episodes and chopping them into 3.
I see. Same episode. In other words, I talked the same amount.
Episode.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a fun, F-O-U-R-cast.
Forecastpodcast.com.
Forecastpodcast.com. But it's all at tommerritt.com. Patrick Norton is at techzilla.com. That's where his fabulous...
Techzilla.tv.
Oh, sorry.
Are we on techzilla.com too? Revision3.com/techzilla works too.
You can basically, you can find them anywhere. With Veronica Belmont, also a former Buzz Out Louder.
That's right.
Buzz has really influenced us all. Patrick, anything else you would like to plug?
HD Nation. HDNation.tv. It's the high-def show I do with Robert Heron, who is fantastic.
With little Bobby Heron.
Little Bobby Heron, all grown up.
All grown up. John C. Dvorak's at channeldvorak.com. And Cranky Geeks, the Tech Geek Crunch, whatever his name is, Crunch Tech Geek Crouch.
Tech Grouch.
Tech Grouch.
But that's not really me, and we got a new guy, Steve, the Tech Hippie.
Really?
Yeah.
Where can I find that?
You'll probably hear about it next week.
I want to see that.
Yeah, it's funny. There's a long story behind it, but anyway, you can check. But people have been complaining about me not plugging Dvorak.org/blog anymore.
Yeah, because that's the drinking game. They're not getting loaded like they used to.
I guess. So, and also the No Agenda show help us out. And you're showing what?
I don't know. That's your. I guess it's an ad. Apollo Ono.
That's a Tech Grouch.
Yeah.
Tech Grouch is skating.
Yeah, cue him up next time. I don't know what this is.
This is some crap Mevio put on the front.
It's a pre-roll. Everything is pre-roll in this world nowadays. Not much I could do about it. There I am. Or I'm sorry, there he is.
You don't really even need to. You don't even really need to put the audio on.
He gets more lumberjacky every time I see him.
That's the exact same outfit.
District, $1 million for him to do this. They fired him. But who billed for the $1 million? The aliens?
All right, there you go. That's techcrouch.mevio.com. But just go to channeldvorak.com. You'll find everything.
It's all there.
You ever could want.
Apple II forever, by the way.
I love the poster. For those watching the video, actually, for those not watching the video, John has a poster behind him from an Apple event that was in 1985, I think.
84.
84. And it was at Moscone Center. It was right after the release of the Macintosh, and Apple was trying to reassure the Apple II faithful that they were not abandoning the platform. So they had an event called Apple II Forever.
That's where they rolled out the 2C.
The 2C, and shortly thereafter they killed the entire product.
That was the end of it.
It's the shortest forever in recorded history.
Well, the Apple II went on forever. They just did it without the help of Apple.
Apple wasn't there for that one. That's a nice poster. Did you get that at the event?
Yeah, I did, as a matter of fact, and I don't think there's many of these left, and I'm going to sell it.
It's very cool. I like it.
Where will you sell it? eBay or Dvorak.com?
You want to buy it? You interested?
No, not even a little bit.
It would go nicely with my next poster.
It's big, by the way. This thing is not small. It's a huge poster.
You're starting to sound like the knife guy on the
It's a beauty.
QVC.
It's in good condition, and also the inks have not faded.
No, they haven't. I'll vouch for that.
Look at this. Look at the size of this thing.
It's massive.
This thing is monstrous.
And there's a guy holding a 2C.
How many left?
How many left at that price?
This is it. This is the last one.
Last one at that price. Better act fast. You can find TWiT at twit.tv, but I guess you probably know that. It's kind of redundant. Just Google TWiT. We're also doing video now on YouTube, youtube.com/twit, and on the Roku box and all these other great places, So you can watch the show, but it's good fun to watch it live. That's we do that every Sunday afternoon at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern on live.twit.tv. I'm Leo Laporte. Thanks for joining us. Another TWiT is in the can.
Doing the TWiT. All right. Doing the TWiT, baby. Doing the TWiT. All right. Doing the TWiT, baby. Doing the TWiT. All right. Let's go round.